to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Brandon Waite, the athletic director at Freedom Prep Academy. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Let's have you begin, Brandon, by sharing with our audience across the U.S. and around the world where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, those types of things.
Of course, yeah. So I grew up in Colorado, product of Colorado Springs. Moved to Utah when I was in my teens. Finished my high school in Utah. I went to college at BYU. Graduated with my degree in special education. Pursued teaching as my career. With that, taught special ed and coached cross country and track and a few other sports along the way at a charter school at Providence Hall. Since then, I've bounced around to a few schools. I spent some time in Jordan School District at a couple schools there, and then I found an administrative job. I got my degree in administration from Western Governors University and got my first administrative job at Rockwell Charter School, where I was the assistant director and the athletic director and special ed director there. Since then, I've moved on to Freedom Prep, where I'm the assistant principal there and the athletic director currently. I've been here for almost 3 years now.
Perfect. Let's have you talk a little bit about your athletic background. Were you able to participate in sports as a youth?
Yeah, I
jazz,
actually really
youth conference,
enjoyed
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really enjoyed sports growing up. I participated in as many different sports and activities as I could. My primary sports growing up was cross country and track, and that's where I competed at the state level. I competed at Lone Peak High School for a number of years and competed at state, like I said. Um, and then I also participated in a few other sports at the JV level, wrestling and basketball and things like that as well.
You grew up in Colorado Springs. When did you move to Utah then?
When I was 14, that's when I moved to Utah. So just before I started high school, moved to Utah, moved to the Alpine area, and then stayed there and throughout high school. And then after that, went off to college.
So how tough was it? I assume so. Leaving after your eighth or ninth grade year, you have all your friends from your childhood, elementary, junior high, new state, new school. That can be tough on people. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, that was a little bit difficult, but it was also a good change too. So I grew up, like I said, in Colorado, had a lot of friends there. Part of that, I'm LDS, so there's not a lot of that share the same religion as me growing up, and so it was the nice change coming to Utah was there's a lot that shared the same religious beliefs as me. The hard part is I did lose a lot of friends growing up, a lot of close ones, that I haven't been able to keep in touch as well as I'd hoped growing that I grew up with, but yeah, I mean it's always difficult for a teenager to make some changes, make new friends. First couple years, obviously, there's a tough transition, but eventually I found my place and found other friends and moved on. So
That's great. Let's have you talk for a moment about some of the mentors and leaders that you've had in your life that have made a difference, both as a youth and professionally.
yeah, so it starts back with probably one of my high school math teachers. He was also my cross country coach. He was one of the first that influenced me in pursuing teaching as well as coaching. He influenced me as a person. His name is Coach Jensen. He had a huge impact in terms of molding me into who I am, making sure that the choices that I made were good choices, not for just athletically driven, but also as a person making good choices and just staying out of trouble, things like that. And so he was the influence that got me, like I said, into teaching. He made me want to be a teacher as well as a coach. And I knew as being wanting to be a coach, that was the best path to do so is through teaching. And so it really made a huge impact that way. Since then, since I've joined the professional world as a teacher and as an educator, I'd say one of the bigger influences that I've had is Nate Marshall. He's the director at Providence Hall. He's had a huge impact on me. First of all, he was my first principal as a teacher, so he helped me mold myself into knowing how to educate, to be the best version of an educator I can be, as well as he was my mentor going into the administrative world as well. So he trained me and helped me understand how to make good choices, and how to look at a situation with a lot of perspectives and looking at well-rounded and making decisions that are maybe tough, but fair in those senses. So I'd say those were two of my biggest influences growing up.
Thank you for sharing. Let's have you answer a little bit of a personal question now. So, Brandon, what's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
Biggest failure. That's a hard one. I failed a lot growing up. And even as an adult, there's a lot of things that um, I I don't know. I might have to come back on that one because that's a hard one. I can't think of anything that. I mean, a lot of little things obviously growing up, a lot of things as an adult that have molded me into making better decisions and learning from it. But I wouldn't say there's anything that stands out as a huge failure in my life.
Okay, well, let's talk then for a minute more about your background. You got into education. Obviously, the first year you were an educator, you weren't the athletic director. So talk about a little bit more detail about your educational background before you became the AD.
Of course. So the first year that I became a teacher, I also became the head coach of the cross country team. At Providence Hall, there wasn't really much of a cross country program, so I built that up from we had 5 members our very first year, and so from the time that I started building that and the 5 years that I spent there, we built that program up to about 40, 50 students that were participating in that on the regular basis. So that's one thing that kind of helped me as a coach is building up programs, working on the budgets with it. Also, working at charter schools, a lot of people don't know this. There's a lot of you're required to do a lot of additional things that people don't know. One of the things that I was expected to do as a coach was also I drove the bus. So I drove the teams, I drove field trips, I drove a lot of things even as a teacher, um, after school and things like that. And so that was one thing that was unique as part of it too is and one thing that I actually appreciate about being in a charter school is the ability to try lots of different things and learn different things as part of that. And so that I think helped me mold into the desire to get more, have more influence on more athletic programs. And so, as part of pursuing as an administrator, obviously, as hopefully a goal of becoming a principal one day, is I love the athletic world as well. And I love helping other coaches and other programs build up and become successful as well, not just on the wins losses column, but as, individuals, as programs, as students accomplishing things that they may not have be able to accomplish other places and try new things. And so part of that is encouraging them, these students that may not want to try different things or may not think that they're good enough to be on a basketball team or something like that, and convince them to try it and experience it and find out for themselves if they are capable of doing those things. And so my start as an educator just really wanted me to educate others, including coaches and students and seeing what the successes they can have. especially as an educator in special education, because that's my whole goal is to help students with disabilities accomplish things that they may not think that they're capable of as well. So it kind of all blends in together. My goal is just helping people become better and educate them and help them. And so my journey of a teacher into an administrator, I think has gone the right trajectory with that.
Thank you for sharing. I want to ask a follow-up because I'm fascinated by some of the charters or the smaller schools. I never experienced that when I worked at Jordan. So what's it like to take your team, and so you have to coach the team, but you're driving the bus also, or you're driving the bus for other teams. Just talk about that for a minute.
It's a different experience because the students obviously find it hilarious that you're sitting there driving the bus while you're also supposed to be coaching, keep an eye on them, all that stuff. But um, it's a lot more of a personal feel to it. It's not just you're not just their coach. You're a mentor. You're an influencer in all aspects of their lives with that. And so I think you build a more personal bond with the students. You build a closer connection with your teams. And I think it makes a huge impact with how you can mold these students, not just athletically, but just in other aspects as well.
That's fascinating. Thanks so much for sharing. Let me ask you about the job of athletic administrator and how it's changed just in the time that you've become an AD, the
Okay.
changes that you've seen.
Um, well, first of all, I was never properly trained as an athletic administrator until I was actually on the job. So my first job as an
Like
assistant
most
principal,
people.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I was given the role as athletic director as part of my role as assistant director. And so I had to learn all the ins and outs, all the programs that had to be used, all the rules. I had to dig deep into the athletic handbook multiple times and still do, just making sure I'm clear on rules and expectations for the different programs and things like that. And so I'd say the biggest change since I've been a role as an athletic director is has just been transfer stuff. That's I think the big hot topic right now is working with students and transfers and things like that, where I have to figure out are my foreign exchange students, are they legal? Are they able to participate in things like that? Or some that's coming from a different school that never got an opportunity to play, are they able to participate? Those are the ins and outs that really are difficult to be clear these times. But I mean, we've got great leaders, great people at the UHSAA that help clarify things and help with that, and all the rules and everything's at your fingertips. You just have to dig into it and learn it. And but that's definitely a difficult part of the job is learning that. And I think it was the biggest change recently with those things. Other than that, it's just building up your programs at the school and figuring out how to keep everyone safe and do the right things and have fun, enjoy being a part of programs with that. So.
Let me ask you about once you became the AD, how you became involved in the UIAAA, how you heard about it, and talk about your journey with the UIAAA.
Well, first starting out, like I said, it was rough. I had to figure out a lot of ropes, a lot of things to work through. And so I figured being a part of an association like the UIAAA helps with that. It built up my ability to get my RAA and and go to classes and learn from other experts and mentors that are in the UIAAA. And really, it's connected me with other administrators, other ADs that have gone through the same stuff that can clarify questions for me or just help me see a viewpoint that they're experiencing, whether it be at the bigger programs or charter programs like myself. Um, it's really helped me build the experiences and understanding of where everyone comes from so I can build a better program here at Freedom.
Let me ask you then about your RAA, first of your certification. Talk about how you heard about it, what steps there are to get that, etc.
Well, I know it's been a real big push lately to get all the administrators certified, but before even that, I just felt like if I wanted to be a good athletic director, someone that knows what they're doing and can really build programs, I need to go through these classes and receive the certifications with it. I'm still working on the next level of it, obviously, but it's a process, and the hardest part about it is finding the time to commit to those type of courses and things like that when you have other duties and things going on to keep you from that. So it's um, I heard about it through the UIAAA. So as part of it, I joined the association, and then I looked through the different credentials, things that you can build on, and decided that was a route that I wanted to take.
Excellent. Let's have you talk for a minute about how do I say this? I want you to share your observations about the athletic program at Freedom Prep, and specifically because Freedom Prep, not a large school, and it is a charter school. Some of the positives and great things about that, and possibly some of the negatives that go along with that. So talk about that. Share that with our audience.
Of course, yeah. So the more difficult, well, I'll start with the positives. The best part about being part of a charter school is seeing these students that may not be capable of joining programs in larger schools get a chance to play. We're such a small school that very rarely do we make cuts on teams. So whenever a student wants to participate in an athletic program or after school program of some sorts, they usually get that opportunity, whether they're good enough or not. And so our job is to build them up and help them become competitive and work with those. Now, that does come with challenges, obviously, because we're not talent wise, we don't end up with the best most competitive talent in terms of competition. And so there's a lot of games that we lose. There are a lot of um, it's difficult on some of our students when in terms of our losing record with things, but we also spin it in a positive way because they're getting experience it. They're getting an opportunity to travel and be a part of a team and learn from coaches and programs with that. And so there's some really good things with that. I'd say some of the more struggles that I have as an athletic director for a smaller program is honestly, it's getting coaches. It's very difficult to find people that want to coach at a 2A level. Um, and so what we end up with, and to be fair, I've gotten a lot of great coaches that have come through. But it's like pulling teeth to find people that want to coach with it. It's very difficult to find those type of people. And sometimes it ends up being just teachers that want to volunteer their time or parents that want their kid to go through a program and are willing to commit their time to coaching, things like that. So I say that's one of the more difficult things to do is just filling those coaching vacancies that I have.
That's fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing. Brandon, what's one myth that you would like to debunk to the general public about being an athletic administrator?
That it's easy. I don't know if people truly, unless they're part of the job, know how much time and commitment it takes to being athletic director. There's lots of ins and outs, lots of behind the scenes things that are going on that people just assume are just happening. The scheduling, the making sure that the venues are the right are reserved appropriately, or that the that you have people doing the scorebook or whatever, right? There's a lot of behind the scenes that when people show up to games and part of the program that they're just appreciate that they're there. And so I think that's one of the things that a lot of people, unless they're an actual athletic director or someone that's closely associated with it, they don't understand all the little things that go on behind the scenes to make things happen.
That's well said. What's the favorite part of your job, Brandon?
Working with the students. That's my favorite part is especially as a role as an assistant principal, I get to see students in a different perspective. When they're part of programs or part of teams, I get to see them try challenging things and try new things and build up their relationships with their coaches and other students and build those bonds with the team and things like that. And it's a chance to be a part of that with them and find that connection with the students that's beyond just the classroom with it. And so that's my favorite part is just watching them be successful, watching them fail and build themselves back up and go on to the next challenge and build those relationships with other people. That's my favorite part.
Thank you for sharing that about students. I think obviously with all of us, unless you're thinking you're going to get rich in education. That's obviously why we entered in the first place. So thank you so much
Absolutely.
for sharing that. Let's finish up with a couple of questions here. The first being, I need your two suggestions, Brandon, for a brand new AD, and they need to follow your suggestions in order to become successful. What would your two suggestions be?
Um, One suggestion is someone that is organized. They need to be on top of things, be able to communicate effectively and quickly on things, know where everything is and how to get to everything when they need to, especially um, as a role as an athletic administrator, you need to know where to find solutions to your problems quickly. Um, and so I'd say organization is a huge component of it. And I say the next one is someone that's honest, someone that's ethical, someone that um, is willing to, even if it means their team takes a loss or gets consequence, things like that, are willing to do the right thing at the right time. I think those two components make a huge difference on someone that's in that role.
Great answers. Let me ask you a follow-up to your second point. Uh, I don't usually get that answer being honest and ethical. So delve in a little bit more about that of why that's on your mind. Obviously, we hope that all of our coaches are that way, but maybe not. But maybe share an experience where that's been a great thing or maybe not a great thing.
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's any specific experiences to come in, but there's all times when a ref makes a call against your team, or if you feel like something is questionable or things like that, taking it and looking at it from a perspective of well, did they make it? I mean, was the rule broken? I guess is the best way to look at it and not just fighting for your team, which obviously is important. You want to fight for your team, you want to stand up for your coaches, your teammates, things like that. But honestly, taking a broader perspective of it and looking at it from a perspective of a ref, maybe what do they see, or the other team, how are they perceiving it, and then making a decision based on that, I think is makes a huge impact. And it also, I mean, it sports can get fiery. It can get very
Mm.
confrontational. And so if you are very open to those type of things and looking at it from different perspectives, it takes that fire out of it. It just becomes oh, this was the rule. It was broken, or it's questionable, but the ref made this call based on their perspective. That's what we're going to have to live with. And so I think that makes a huge difference in your communication and your interactions with other people. And that's, as an administrator, I think that's huge because you got to keep those relationships. You got to build on them. You got to work with other people, despite what the call was, despite what the turnout of the game was. It's you got to continue to work with them and making sure you maintain that relationship is huge.
Well said. Thank you so much for sharing. We'll finish with this. Brandon, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
Um, do I love my job?
Well, okay. Do you?
I do. I really enjoy my job. One thing that I think people don't understand with charter schools is because we wear so many hats as charter school, there's very few athletic directors in charter schools that don't have other roles. For me, example is my full-time job is an assistant principal. I'm doing that with all day, but have to find time within it to work on the things athletic director needs to work on as well. And so um, I really do enjoy it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of struggles, especially with multiple roles. And I feel like bigger schools have bigger challenges as well. So it's not like they're not having the same struggle as well. It's just a different perspective of it. But um, I enjoy it, and that's what keeps me driving every day. I love working with the kids. I love working with the coaches and other athletic directors that I associate with, and that's what keeps me rolling with these things, even though it's difficult.
Thank you so much. That ends this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Brandon Waite, Registered Athletic Administrator, the Director of Athletics at Freedom Prep Academy. Brandon, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you. I appreciate you the invitation.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.